All right, Niall, what's in your notes today?
Well, today a note of optimism, Robbie. Tuesday was a good day for the rule of law in America. We badly need more of those. Two courts ruled against President Trump in his ravenous quest to expand his own power. First, a district court in California declared Trump's deployment of the National Guard and the US Marines in Los Angeles to be illegal. Then, late last night, the usually conservative Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that Trump could not continue using the Alien Enemies Act to deport Venezuelans. In that second case, Trump had argued that the presence of gang members amounted to an actual invasion of the United States. And the court said, nope. Quote, we find no invasion or predatory incursion. Both rulings, of course, might end up before the Supreme Court, and Trump has a friendly audience there, not least because he nominated 3 of the 9 justices. But whatever way the Supreme Court rules, it won't erase the factual record that the lower courts have established. That record is one in which Trump has ridden roughshod over history and precedent and the law as he grasps for more power. The situation in Los Angeles is particularly alarming, and that's partly because of what happened, which I'll get to in a moment, but it's also because Trump is seeking to replicate the pattern elsewhere. He has already, of course, deployed the National Guard here in DC, where we don't have the protections of full statehood. And he beats the drum louder every day for doing the same in other places like Chicago and Baltimore. Here he is at the White House yesterday. Now, the reporter's question is a little hard to hear, but he's asking Trump whether he has made his mind up on deploying federal forces to Chicago. Take a look.
We're going in. I didn't say when, we're going in. When you lose, look, I have an obligation. This isn't a political thing. I have an obligation.
Isn't a political thing. Pretty much everything Donald Trump does is very much a political thing. So, back to Los Angeles. The judge in that case, Charles Breyer, was crystal clear. Trump's decision to deploy the National Guard and the US Marines violated the prohibition on the use of the military to enforce domestic law, according to the judge. That prohibition has stood for more than 2 centuries via the Posse Comitatus Act. Yes, there can be some exceptions to that in rare circumstances, but Breyer found that the scale of the protests over immigration raids earlier this year did not come close to meeting that standard. The judge noted that Trump had deployed troops, quote, ostensibly to quell a rebellion. The judge then added, quote, there were indeed protests in Los Angeles and some individuals engaged in violence. Yet there was no rebellion, nor was civilian law enforcement unable to respond to the protests and enforce the law. Trump and his Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth deployed 4,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines anyways. Once again, we need to step back to appreciate how shocking Trump's conduct can be. A President of the United States deployed almost 5,000 troops to the nation's second largest city, for no good reason at all. Liberals are outraged. But why isn't everyone? Conservatives, ostensibly so concerned with the rights of the individual and the threat of an overreaching state, are largely silent. Why is that? The dangers here are right before our eyes. Trump is engaged in a rapid lowering of the bar for using the military among and against the civilian population. And once that bar is lowered, who knows what happens next? A reminder one more time. This is a president who sought to overturn an election, raised a mob to help him in that effort, and pardoned even the most violent members of that mob the very first day he got back into power. The problem here isn't that people are too alarmist about Trump. The problem is that they're not alarmed enough. One notable exception in the political world is California Governor Gavin Newsom. Here he is speaking to Brian Tyler Cohen last month.
He's the big guy trying to find peace, really? When he's bringing war to the American people? He put military in the streets, not of Baghdad. He didn't send the military in his first administration anywhere in the world. He sent the United States Marines into the United States of America in one of the bluest cities in this country, in Los Angeles, one of the great cities, American cities. That's what Donald Trump did. He is a wartime president.
Tuesday's ruling was a win for Newsom, but there are bigger things at stake than that. In the California decision, the judge looked all the way back to 1878, and a speech by a Maryland congressman called William Kimmel, no relation to Jimmy, as far as we know. Kimmel was actually introducing the Posse Comitatus Act, arguing for why it was necessary. Partly, he said, because deploying the military anywhere to enforce domestic law could soon enough lead to their deployment everywhere, which would of course be martial law. Quote, "If this may be done in one district, may it not be done in all the districts? If so, and the interest of a president demands, may he not use this power for his own purposes?" Kimmel pondered. The congressman went on to warn about the dangers of a president sparking trouble as a pretext for the use of military power. Such a would-be despot, Kimmel noted, could, quote, "provoke the resistance he seeks for the employment of force and in the name of order substitute his will for law." To, in the name of order, substitute his will for law. That's as good and succinct a summary as you'll get of what Donald Trump is doing. He's been doing it almost every day of his second term. He's doing it all across the board. Many institutions in politics, academia, and media have crumbled and caved in the face of his assault. We should be grateful that the courts have not so far.
When I saw the subject of your radar today, I actually thought it'd be a decision that I'm even more excited about, which is the hold on the tariffs.
Well,
more emergency authority that the president does not have, the court found, and I'm happy about that. Look, I am temperamentally broadly in agreement with you. I don't want to vest awesome police federal powers in not specifically this president, but any president. And I think these things could easily be abused. And we have seen the great irony of, for instance, the Homeland Security. What they're doing now is that Kristi Noem, as governor of her state, resisted federal COVID mandates and is now the enforcer of the federal police force effectively. Again, it goes to show how you have to imagine these powers in the hands of your your enemy political party. Right now, conservatives are acting like they can't ever imagine a time where Democrats are in control again. And this is a very closely split Congress. I know Trump did win, but it's kind of close. Who knows if the next guy is going to win? And I would like us to be working to constrain the government wherever possible, so that nothing like COVID ever happens again, nothing like the war on terror ever happens again, nothing like the war in Iraq ever happens again, and instead I see expansions of executive authority anywhere. And also they could just do these things, they wouldn't run into the court problems. If they could just pass laws.
Right.
They could update the laws you're talking about, as long as they could get the votes for them. Or if Democrats are going to obstruct them and they think it's good, make the Democrats obstruct them. And then they say to the American people, look, Democrats get in our way when we do things the right way, so you got to vote for more of us. I don't know why they're not taking that road, just because Congress is lazy.
Yeah.
And Trump thinks he could do things more quickly, but he's going to run into court problems when he does it.
Well, I do think, in fairness to you, you have been pretty clear on the problems that you have with this kind of thing. I think it is a great shame that conservatives more generally, I know you define yourself as libertarian, but conservatives more generally aren't alarmed by this massive overreach and the accumulation or concentration of power in this particular president. It seems plainly dangerous, whether one is conservative or liberal to me.
And that's what stops me from identifying myself
Right.
as one of them, is exactly what you point out there. I think it was Hayek, F.A. Hayek, an economist and philosopher I'm a fan of, who wrote an essay, decades and decades and decades ago, saying this is why I don't classify myself as a conservative, for exactly this reason, because they get into power and then out goes the kind of principled fear of large government or authoritarianism when they're in charge. Many such cases, as
Many.
a familiar political figure would say.
Sure.
Next up, Congress is back, and a familiar issue is at the top of their agenda: Jeffrey Epstein, the heated demand to release all of the files after the break. Stay with us.